Welcome back to another episode of the Downsizing Roadmap podcast with your hosts, Jody Roscoe and Heather Fisher. We're talking about all things downsizing, from our own experiences with clients to guest experts. Let's make downsizing easier, one conversation at a time.
Welcome to the Downsizing Roadmap podcast, Crisis Cleanouts. We're going to be talking today about them and how to empty a home quickly without getting stuck in the process.
Yeah, we see a lot of these actually. More than I want to see. I hope that we can make some changes with all of the podcasts that we've done and all the information that we share. But we unfortunately see a lot of crisis cleanout, and so we'll talk about if you've gotten to this place, what you're going to do about it. So I'm Jody Roscoe.
I'm Heather Fisher.
Last episode, we talked about making a plan B so that you have some of this planned out already. So if you aren't in this crisis place, go back and listen to the one that we just dropped last week about making a plan, because this is a yucky place to be, and I've been in this place. And so it took me way longer than it should have because I didn't want to be doing all the things that I was doing. So I would just say, if you're there though, hopefully we can give you some practical tips on what that looks like.
Yeah, and we'll walk through that process of a couple weeks or a month or two when a transition happens or when a death happens and you're dealing with that. It can give you some more clues of what you can avoid on top of last week's episode regarding stuff and the house itself. But for all those family members and loved ones and spouses, or maybe even yourself, that you have something that's happened, you're moving into a community quickly, you're dealing with a house that the person who lived there is vacating quickly, and you're just not sure how to get from here to there, to get the home sold quickly, get those finances into the right place to continue care or get that finalized. Let's dive in on what to do.
Yeah. So I think we're going to talk about decision fatigue. We're going to talk about all of the stuff that you need to do, sibling dynamics, all kinds of things. So stay tuned for all of those things. But let's just talk about how these situations usually set up, like what happens. So often it will be a sudden health event, a fall, something like that, an accident. Rehab will become permanent. So what will happen is you think, we're just taking mom or dad or my husband, wife, whatever, to rehab. But then when they get there, they say they can't go home. This is going to be, they can't go home. An assisted living move happens quickly. Again, that usually is because of some kind of a health event or something that has happened. You fall in one too many times, something like that. Death followed by immediate stress, the estate pressure of, dealing with it. So somebody has passed away. And so the house may need to be sold quickly for financial reasons. And so we need to kind of get that together, or you have to do this quickly because you don't even live in this state where this is, and you're going to come in for a short period of time, and you need to get it all done in that short period of time.
Yeah, all of these situations are compounded by logistics on the other side as well. Mm-hmm. So that whole time period can be very stressful, and we're just going to give some tools and some ways you can approach it to hopefully make it just a little bit logistically stressful and let it happen quickly so that, you can move back to the more important things.
Yeah, and I think what happens is everybody's in shock. And so it feels like it's going to be this calm process that happens, but it isn't, because everybody's in shock and they have to make decisions quickly, and the house feels like frozen, in time, like the person left and it doesn't look any different. It still feels like it's active and whatever. And so that makes decisions harder because you feel like you're messing with somebody.
Intrusive.
Yes, you're messing with somebody's space. It feels very intrusive. So,
we've been in homes where you can tell what meal they had last before they left, and then they don't have that opportunity to come home.
Right.
And it's, how do we get this to a place that feels good for the people handling it.
And usually because it's been an event that happened quickly, not something that was just leading up to knowing and making these decisions, it's usually some kind of a defining event. People aren't emotionally ready for the speed of the decisions that they have to make, right? Because they're still in shock from the event that happened.
Or grief, yeah.
Right. And so emotionally, those decisions can be hard. And our brain, the way that our brain works, when we're under acute stress, our amygdala fires up and then it narrows our perception so we can't think as clearly or easily. And decision fatigue sets in much more quickly than it normally would. And so it shows that studies will make poorer decisions when they've been under stress for 4 to 6 hours. And we know that when this is happening, stress is like hours and hours and hours, not just 4 to 6 hours. It's like weeks of stress. And so so the decision making becomes more difficult because you're under stress and your brain is like shutting you down so that it's trying to save you, but it doesn't save you then from making good decisions.
Yeah, this is when we see those panic decisions surface, and they can just create more logistical problems. Panic selling the house from, a lowball investor offer. You could, not have time to properly make decisions on the stuff and have regret later about something that you wish you would have kept. You can have those arguments because there's not a process and there's too many cooks in the kitchen trying to help, but everybody has their own idea of what that looks like.
Right.
Just lots of decisions that can add to the stress.
Yep, for sure. So families get stuck quickly because they're just, again, sorting stuff. The decisions are just too hard to make, right? So touching the item is not the same as making progress. So sometimes people just start moving things around the house because they don't know what to do with it, and they kind of just start moving things around. And you could spend entire weekends with boxes of photos, or with things that are very sentimental, or emotionally evaluating objects without making any progress on the home.
Yeah, I've experienced this myself. We all go through that, but picking up an item and thinking, oh, look at this, and then setting it back down without a decision, when you compound that by item after item after item, those hours go by, and at the end of the day,
you're exhausted. And no decisions have been made.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So starting out with that sorting plan and parameters and things like that from the beginning will really gain some momentum.
Yeah. So we need it to basically shift from emotional to operational. We need it to turn into, which isn't to say that there aren't going to be some things that are emotional through it. There definitely are. But if you're I have this timeline and I need this to be done in a week or 2 weeks or something like that, you won't have time to emotionally go through every piece of thing. So a maybe pile can work, as long as not everything goes in the maybe pile. But you have to be careful if you're going to put things in a maybe pile, because that will come back to it later, multiplies very quickly, and then it turns back into not seeing any visual progress, and then feeling just demotivated by that. You just destroys your motivation. So the things that for us that we needed to go in the maybe pile, and the maybe pile was my car, because it was that had to go out of the house, visually away, were photos or letters or paperwork that needed to be gone through, but you can do that kind of at a later time. And so eventually, if you make too many maybe piles, nobody wants to revisit those piles over and over, because now it all feels super emotionally loaded because you weren't able to make that decision right at the beginning. So I would say if you're going to do that, I would do it with just things that you're going to have to. I mean, some of that stuff I still haven't gone through 4 years later, pictures and certain things, because it was hard for me, and I will get to that place. But that wasn't happening in 2 weeks. No way, no way.
Yeah, those are somewhat easier to move things. Of course, volume compounds the difficulty, but it's not big pieces of furniture. It's not, tons of boxes of housewares. That tends to be something where you can pack up the several boxes of photos or paperwork, maybe even do a very cursory scan to weed out junk mail and advertisements and
we did that.
Things like that, and then take the things that are related to accounts and insurance and banking statements, things like that, to be sorted later. But that initial run through to reduce the volume.
So what you don't want to do is like spend 45 minutes talking about like which Tupperware to keep, right? Because like that should be an easy, none of it probably, it all could go to donation or, like if it's a estate sale or whatever's happening. But again, like if you have family photos or specific paperwork, that stuff may be something that you want to.
Yeah, I was just talking this week with my mom about a family friend that's going through a quick time crunch move, and I was asking my mom how she was planning to help there. She's going over there to help, and she said, well, it'll be like when we helped them downsize before, and we'll just go through everything and see what they want to keep. And in my mind, I was picturing the one by one item that took so long. I would say in these short time frame crisis situations, you really want to start the day with what is most important to keep that, however many people really want, and how do we logistically get those things out of the house to where they need to go, because you do not need to touch every item when it comes to the cleaning supplies or the yard equipment in the garage, unless those are particular things that someone wants and takes from the family. Those are the type of things where those resources can help speed up your time with a donation pickup, a junk clean out, an estate sale, all of those pieces. So focus on what are the important things you already know must be kept.
Yeah. What happens is one family member usually becomes the doer. And whether they want to be the doer or the project manager or not, but that is usually what happens. And sometimes that can be a bottleneck, but the doer becomes, the person that, holds the keys to everything, the donation coordinator, the person that's the paperwork sorter, the person that manages all the utilities and bills and, whatever. And so I would say, and sometimes they're the person that has to be the sibling communicator to whatever's going on between different siblings. So I think on some level it's good to have somebody that is in charge. Everybody can't be in charge, but make sure that that's not too much on that one person, that you maybe delegate some different things, and one person can be in charge of part of it and one person can be in charge of another part of it.
Yeah, I think that stems from, a lot of times either proximity or their involvement up to and leading into this crisis. So they already are the holder of a lot of information, or they're just a good systems person. Yeah. They're that take charge person. And so it's not necessarily bad to have one person be that point person, but if you're a sibling and it's not you, just make sure you're appreciating, either take some of it on, or if you don't want to, or know that's not your strength, be appreciative of what they're doing and lean into the things that fit your personality or your abilities better. Can you just be the hauler of things to a donation drop off? Can you be the box, be taping boxes together? What can you be doing so that all your strengths work together as a team, instead of feeling like one person has taken over, but you also don't want to take over?
Right. I think that's where a lot of the resentment and arguing and stuff comes from. And I will say we see this all the time. And a lot of times what we will see is the one person who probably was closest to the person that, is needing the help now, who is already helping them in all different ways, is now in charge of, all of this. And what we see, though, is we'll see maybe unrealistic expectations from the people who weren't in the middle of it on the person who's the doer, right? So I'm not going to be there to help you because I live far or whatever reasons, but I want it to be this way, and this way. And so
changing that mindset.
Yeah, try not to do that. If you really want to be that involved, come be involved is, I think, what I would say. Otherwise, let the person handle it, because that's really so much more stress on top of all of it, right? So
yeah, and if you're the doer, some mindset shifts around the expectations of that you're putting on others. If you've already, if you're already the keeper of this information and that's why you're in that role, have some understanding that they just don't and you're the best person for it. Or if you're in charge, by default of going through the whole house, set your expectations of not waiting and expecting one other person or 10 other people to come and wander through the house and not make progress. I think some of the things you can do just to get through this is to do that pre-work of, putting all like things together, and then having okay, here's the clothing in this bedroom, here's the kitchen stuff all over the dining room table, here's this, so that you don't have a whole army of people coming through and just picking things up and putting them down and not able to make decisions, and then you're frustrated that progress wasn't made.
And if you're the doer, try to delegate some of it and say, okay, you go get all the clothes and put them all in, one place, or you take everything out of the kitchen cabinet so we can see what it is. And, so we can start to, figure that out.
Yeah.
And because what'll happen is the doer will stop delegating because coordinating people can become harder than just doing it themselves. But then they get mad that they're doing it all themselves. So all of it is communication. It's all communication problems. And it's just so magnified because you're under stress and you're maybe sad and there's all kinds of parts to it. But so try to help each other out in those ways. Assign categories of responsibility, and designate one person that is the doer, maybe, and the communication person, but make sure that if that's you, don't take on that mental it's just easier if I do it myself. Try not to take that mental on, and then create deadlines. Because you will also, I think something else we see all the time is people who aren't there are I'm not there, but I want this, and this out of the house. These are the things that I want, but then they don't come and get them. And so if that's you and you want things, come get them. Come get them out of the place. That's how you can help if you're, if that's the level of help you can give in that situation. Just at least come get them, send somebody to get them, do something so that they're, not in the way anymore.
Yeah, even worse, sometimes we see, well, I'm not giving you permission to make any decisions until I come take a look, but I can't come for 2 or 3 weeks or, whatever that looks like. And so
make the time and come, or let go of whatever it is that you think you need.
Communicate on that.
Yeah, those are hard ones, but especially if you need to make a quick move with the house, you can't wait on people, siblings, whoever that can't get there to do. Sometimes it's grandkids, they'll want this or whatever. But the first step of it really is, I think, sorting things into categories. But then it is having everybody come and take what they're wanting, because you don't want to be donating things when somebody else is like, wait, that's what I wanted, right? So having everybody come and just making that a deadline. This is what's happening. It needs to be done by this time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because a lot of times I think people that are on the fringes of what's happening don't see the time crunch. They don't understand it. They're just, and not to even be mad about it, with them. They just don't understand what's happening. So they're like, oh yeah, I'll get there. And in their mind, that's okay. But in your mind, you're like, no, you need to be here today or tomorrow.
Well, sometimes, if this is happening and the homeowner is in a senior living community and that's the time frame, there's financial concerns where they might need that home sold as quickly as possible to be able to get the care that you need. So looking at it from the perspective of that care for your parent or, that person, that the faster you can help with this process and keep it moving along, the faster they can be settled from their stress and financial burden for that next step. It's not much different if it's someone that passed and you're trying to settle the estate for that, because the longer the house sits there, you're losing money as an estate by the carrying costs that come with a house, even if it's paid for, or the deterioration that comes if it just sits there empty, paying for utilities to stay on, all of those things. Time is of the essence for benefits, not just as a pressure point.
Yeah. So I think visually, as you're going through the house, if you can get things out of the house, that helps so much. Visible reduction matters. Psychologically, like it makes you feel like you're making progress. So if there's stuff that needs to go to the trash, take it to the trash. If there's stuff that needs to go to donate, have somebody, designate somebody to do that, or get a pickup, have somebody, get yourself a pickup so that you can get some of that out of the way and start feeling, great about it. I think that you can create little color stickers that you're keeping, you're going, like whatever those is, you can kind of create little systems around what that looks like. So one color of things is going to be you're going to keep it, one's going to be that you're going to donate it, and people are going to know. But the faster you can get it moved out of where it needs to be, the better you're going to feel.
Yeah. Similarly, you could be sorting it by who's taking something.
Right.
So you could use stickers of some sort to identify
people,
painter's tape. Not masking tape. Don't ruin the
right.
Don't ruin the finish on furniture, but painter's tape should work pretty well, or
Yeah.
Post-it notes, things like that, where you can identify things that have already been claimed and, try to group them in empty rooms as you go, get things moving towards the exits,
Right.
garages, or, all grouped together in one room so it can easily be picked up.
Let's talk about sibling dynamics and
Yeah.
fairness and all the, struggles that people often have
Yeah.
through this. And I think there's a lot of people are worried about fairness, like being equal, like financially equal, sentimentally equal. The number of items can be like you had 5 and I had 10, but it, financially that might be equal. I don't know. And then the labor, like I did more than you did, kind of, there's all kinds of different definitions of fairness, and everybody, again, high emotional, everybody's highly emotional. And so all that stuff seems to come into play even more. And you're different people, like, right? So you have the saver and you have the avoider who can't deal, with whatever. You have the quick decision maker and the keeper, all of that stuff. Different people process things differently. Some are very sentimental about how they process things. Some are like, it's all junk, I just want it gone. And we hear these words from people like, oh, but it's mom's stuff, like we need to, and then the other one's like, yeah, it's gone, like let's get a dumpster. And so different personalities are hard at the same time.
Yeah, and you bring a lifetime of family dynamics, the good dynamics, the tense dynamics. You bring all of that to the table and then amplify it by, stress, potentially travel, tired, exhaustion from physical work. It all gets amplified. So it can be a challenge, but if you all keep in mind that end result, there are ways to work through it.
Yeah, so I think one of the ways that you can do it, if you've grouped things together, you can, go in order and just like everybody, somebody picks a number, like whoever's first or whatever, and then you go around and each person can pick something, if you're just going to go in order and till the stuff is gone.
Or till you get to the point where nobody else wants anything, okay, donation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Or if nobody else wants anything and you want 2 more things, whatever, as long as everybody's good with that, that's fine. But instead of, because ideally what we would want is for instructions to have been left on who got what and what that was. But 90% of the time, that's not what's happening. And so that's why we're always advocating for that, because it takes so much stress away from the family. But it's hard to basically say where everything goes, right?
Right.
And often people don't know what's going to be super important to their loved ones, right? It may not be the things they're thinking. So hopefully you don't all want the same thing. But if you do, then it needs to be some kind of a fairness, pulling straws, like whatever that looks like.
Yeah, and it's okay at that point when it has had the opportunity for that fairness cycle, that if you're the person who doesn't want a lot, it's okay if the saver
Takes
wants
it all.
a whole lot more. There's really no difference between that or donation. And it's okay if, you have those couple items that you chose that mean the most to you, and someone else needs 20 of them versus the 2 or 3 that you took. All of that's okay once you've had that communication and had a system, so that all of that works. And there may be younger generations that need more stuff of just the household things, not the sentimental items, that it's just useful for them to have those kitchen items or furniture, things like that. So looking at it through a different lens of, fairness, but also equal isn't always the best solution.
And I think when we're not the saver kind of a person, it's hard to watch the saver person save everything. And it feels like, why are you doing that? And there's like some judgment around that. And so I would say try to just tuck that judgment away, because everybody grieves differently. And so it may be that that's what they need to do right now. They may not save it forever. They might save it forever, but it doesn't really matter. You're doing what you're doing. They're doing what they're doing.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this and, you're the one with the house full of things, and you're wanting to avoid all these things down the road, just like Jody said, the more notes you can tuck into things, the more stories you can already have told, the more decisions before your family is unsure of what to do, that can solve some of these layers.
Yep. So sibling roles can be frustrating sometimes, but
yeah. My dad's mom, my grandma, passed away. I was young, like 7, so I don't remember, but I remember my mom telling me, my dad was one of 7 siblings, and she just designated a room in her house for each child. Like, this is your room, handle it, take what you want. So you got like the artwork or the furniture, and if you didn't want it, then, up for grabs differently, but they kind of divided things in that fashion. So there's lots of things that will work. Yeah.
I think that the other thing that families can lose months on is trying to maximize either the money that you get out of the things, or where actually they should specifically go. Like, oh, well, the books need to go here specifically, or this needs to go here specifically, and trying to find like the perfect place for things to land, or trying to say, I can get this much money. And I think that will also be, if you have more than one person doing it, somebody will think that things are worth more than somebody else will think they're worth. Some people will be like, just donate it all. Some people will be like, no, we need to have, garage sales or estate sales or whatever. And so there's going to have to be some thought process through that. And honestly, the faster that you need to sell the house or move it out and make it empty, the less time you have to sell things. Estate sales are usually out a month or 2. They have to, you have to get on their schedule, and then they have to get ready for the sale and all of those things. But with that being said, many times the stuff that is there is not worth tons and tons of money. And so I think people get caught up on, well, we could be making money on this. And
well, I think if you do that math too, it's hard to see, because you just think, I could sell this and something monetary would come in. But if you do that math of balancing the time, both your time spent getting ready for a sale, or having a garage sale, or selling items one by one on eBay or Facebook Marketplace, versus the cost of taking longer to sell the home, if you factor in the taxes and insurance and utilities and all of that. I mean, you could be out of whack losing money
Right.
just by making that decision, let alone probably coming pretty close to even. So
Yeah.
save yourself that energy
Yeah.
and do a great donation pickup. There are resources where, there's some great donation places that will take many categories of things, and then it is going from there to the right resources, people who truly need it. It's not always just landing on a big warehouse floor destined for the landfill. You can do one big pickup to many, many great organizations and feel so good about that getting in the hands of people who need it.
Yeah, I do think sometimes that feels better than getting a couple dollars for something here and there and trying to manage all of that selling.
Yeah, that management piece, you don't anticipate how much of a burden you're layering on top of other burdens.
Right.
At this time
And I
frame.
think people just get attached emotionally. They're about like, oh, this cost a lot, this used, and some of it did. I mean, there was a time when we spent lots of money on furniture, and people would buy expensive name brand furniture, but that hasn't held its value, and so that's hard to let go. But I think you have to realize, like, you appreciated and used it and enjoyed whatever that was that cost money, and so some of that money has been spent up and used up in that enjoyment of it.
Yeah, if you find yourself getting stuck in that concern over whether things really have true value that you don't know, going back to one of our very early episodes when we talked about keep the memories, lose the stuff, and that book is so great. And he was, his advice on that was to just start a spreadsheet of those items that are kind of those maybe box items of, is this worthy of putting the effort in to sell, and then doing a quick research of, if it's a collection of something, looking to see what they're selling for on eBay or another platform, and looking at those sold prices, and then making that decision quickly, like, yes, this is a trade-off for the potential, and then moving that out of the house and selling it later, versus just looking at the whole house and kind of hemming and hawing over each item.
Yeah, I think that stuff that people are usually grateful that they save later are things like handwritten recipes, notes, voicemails, movies, like home movies, photos,
if
ornaments.
the person was crafty quilts or paintings or things like that, not necessarily in volume, but the memento of
that was their hobby.
What was their legacy and how is that represented? So we talk about that a lot. If someone had a hobby that they loved, you don't have to keep every item from that hobby to be able to cherish just that legacy of, oh, here is a picture of them fishing and, one fishing pole that I keep in the garage.
Yeah. Or also like one meaningful object that they used all the time. So maybe there's a candy dish that you remember, or, a certain baking dish, or, or something like that. But something that was used often, because again, the stories, if stuff isn't used, there's no stories around it. So the things that really remind you of that person, but you're not going to be super excited that you kept, everything that was in the kitchen in tubs and tubs of it. Like, you don't need all of it.
Yeah, we have like a mini size spatula. I didn't realize the story around it, and then my husband said, "No, we can't do anything. We have to keep that." I used to go to his grandma's house in the summer when his parents were working, and spent most of his summers at her house. And he said that was from her house. That's what we always used, and it was like my size when I was a kid, and I always used that one. And so now I think of that when it's in our drawer, but we also don't have boxes and boxes. From her house of things. It's that one just memory trigger.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so you're going to clean out. You're going to just pick the things that are legacy things and things that have lots of sentimental value that you might be able to look through a little bit later if you're doing it quickly. And then the rest of it, whether it's donation or whether it's a sale, it can be a quick. Once you've gone through all the things that people want, then the rest of it is kind of a quick end.
Yeah, and so getting through this, keeping the momentum going without feeling like it was just a terrible process and you did it all wrong, remembering that momentum matters more than perfection. Each day, what did you accomplish today? How much closer are you to the finish line? Visible progress is what's going to change your mindset around it. Like, oh gosh, this bedroom is now empty. Let's move on to the next one.
I was going to say that you can have daily goals of, okay, we're going to empty out these 2 rooms today. And even if some of that stuff gets emptied into another room, like you said, moving it closer to the door, right? As you're moving it downstairs instead of upstairs or whatever that looks like. And then you're feeling like, okay, I don't need to go in that room again. Like, whew, that's done. And then if you have donations and you're scheduling a pickup or you're doing it, at the end of each day, just start getting things out if you can do that, just so that you, again, visually feel like, oh my gosh, the house is emptying. It feels better.
Yeah, we see that a lot when we go over to clients' homes as they're getting to this finish line and they're like, everything's done except the garage. Don't look in the garage. That's where we still have this, and this piled. And so that's that thing of, getting the basement emptied and maybe some of those piles live in the garage while they're in transit, and then the bedrooms, and then the main level, and you're just moving it all. And then that garage is easy to, get stuff taken away from, either by donations or family hauling it away or picking it up.
Yeah, we always encourage people, like sometimes in the house there's like a lot of stuff that is just junk. Like we had tons and tons of paperwork that was so old and in the garage and, stuck together and not even anything important, or things that were broken. And just having, if you had a junk hauler come and get some of that, we had a dumpster, but that was a whole nother thing. I would probably rather have, now that I know, have had a junk guy come and just taken that just away. And it doesn't all have to, you don't have to wait until the very end for that. If you know what that is, get a haul and just get somebody to take some of it away so that, again, it feels like you can breathe.
Yeah. Having a list of room by room priorities, you could put tape a piece of paper to each doorway. Here's what needs to happen in this room, or here's what's in here. So if you have multiple people working on things, you're not stepping on each other's toes, either people not knowing what needs to be done or redoing something that's already been sorted, or mixing things up that are already specifically in the places they need to be. It can become a little chaotic. So just a little organization around what the process is, so that you're not just circling.
Well, that's what we find, that the families who get through it the quickest and with the least arguments and whatnot are the ones who have created enough structure that the system can work for them and taken some of the emotion out. Because when you don't have a system, the emotion gets bigger, because frustration comes in and all of that. And so if you can create a system, you get that room, whatever that is, or we're all going to do this room until we've got it, whatever it is, then the system will help you, the guidelines of the system will help you stay less emotional and be able to get things done quicker.
Yeah, and the same thing we say in all of our downsizing classes, start with easier decisions. Don't say, okay, we all need to go through the photos and then nothing is happening. Save some of that till later or a different location and just get the logistics of the basic things done. Yeah.
So once you're done, you're going to feel relief. You're going to feel, that movement will create the clarity of what needs to happen next. But most people remember the connections of, not the stuff, the stories.
Yeah.
And so tell the stories while you're doing it. None of it's gonna go perfectly. That's okay too. There are gonna be days that aren't so amazing, and that's gonna be okay too. But I think once that pressure is off, that relief feels so much better. So Yep. Just walk through it. Get it done.
Yeah. If there's any resources that we can help you to get through this process, this is the time to call us and let us help you find those resources, help you get that home sold. You can connect with us for that on our website, downsizingroadmap.com/help. Please reach out to us. Let us know what you're having trouble with. We would love to hear from you, and we will be back next week.
Talk to you later.
Thanks for joining us on the Downsizing Roadmap podcast. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who might need a little downsizing inspiration. Have questions or ideas for future episodes? Reach out to us on our website, www.downsizingroadmap.com. Until next time, let's keep simplifying and moving forward.